Hello and welcome back to part 1 of masking in Topaz Studio, at least the old version that's soon to be replaced. Hopefully these lessons will carry over. This first part just goes over what is a mask. So we're going to go through a couple of examples, but let's start with something you're all familiar with. You do already know what a mask is. You're familiar with the Zorro mask, a black mask that hides a part of the face. Well, in a mask, black does conceal as well. It completely conceals what's underneath. So as we'll learn in more detail later, when we learn how to access masks, this is a mask over here. And what I have is a layer of black color overlay at 100% opacity, but I've created a mask where white reveals this blackness and black conceals the blackness on the underlying image. Now, the degree of blackness or lightness will determine how much of the underlying image shows through. So for example, we might have a gray mask that partially lets through whatever effect or image we're trying to apply. And the brighter the white, the more blackness shows through. The darker the gray, the less of the image or effect will show through. So let's go through understanding what a mask is in basics. I assume most of you have already acquired some basic working knowledge. You can refer to any of the basic masking tutorials, but we'll still go through it here in some depth. White reveals, black conceals, and shades of gray are relatively permeable to whatever effect, such as a texture, an image, color overlay, a basic adjustment, darkness, lightness, you name it, that you're trying to apply to an underlying image. So let's assume you had a wall and you covered it with a big black stencil paper. You draw with white paint on the black paper where you want to put pink paint on your wall. You then cut out all the white areas to create a hole, and what you've created is now a stencil. And obviously, if you pour paint on it, paint will get on the white wall where that hole is, where the white was before. And then you're going to brush over that stencil with pink paint all over the entire wall. When the stencil is removed, you only see pink paint where the stencil was white. Otherwise, you see the original wall. So let's demo that. Here's our white wall. And just like the Zorro mask, I've created several areas where I've covered with black. This is just the inverse of this. Here's just a stripe. Here's our white wall. And I'm going to, guess what? Paint over the entire area with fluorescent pink paint, like so. I'm painting all over the image, but when I pull the black tape off, only the areas that were white on our mask or stencil allowed the pink paint to be applied to the wall. Where we had black, it blocked the pink paint from being applied. So this is just what we were talking about earlier. Black concealed the pink effect that we applied to this wall. White revealed. White allowed the pink effect to be applied to the wall. So remember that white reveals, black conceals, and shades of gray are relatively permeable to whatever effect or image you're trying to overlay. So for example, with this mask that I created from the image, we go from parts that are totally black and parts that are relatively gray. So here dark gray, and here ever lightening gray to white, allowing a color, this purplish blue, to be applied to the image. Where there's black, it prevents color from showing through, and where there's gray, it allows a relative amount of that purple to show through. All right, so let's call part 1 quits now and move on to part 2.